Folks, every person that has been to law school, gone to law school, become a lawyer, knows someone like Ketanji Brown Jackson, okay? And I'll break this down for you here so you know what's going on at the Supreme Court and why it matters to each and every one of us, even to the preservation of the Republic. Sam Urjovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. Good to be with you as always. Buckle up, lots to cover today. Sam@whatsrightshow.com. That is my email. That's where you can reach me. At What's Right Sam on X. I post on X all the time, more than I should sometimes. So find me there, follow me. Get on X if you're not on X. The show gets posted there every day. I mentioned that. You can start your day with the program. And if you don't have X, find the podcast, What's Right Show, wherever you get your podcast. Just type that in, What's Right Show. You'll see this face looking at you, and that's the right show. So you click on that, click to subscribe, costs nothing. And you have the show first thing in the morning, fresh on your phone or on your computer. All right. When I went to law school, I had this kid. I'm not going to name him because he's probably out there somewhere listening to this program and raging. But I had this kid in my class. I had a few classes with him, and he never did the reading. He didn't do the reading. Now, he didn't do the reading not because he was dumb. I mean, he wasn't the smartest guy around, but he didn't do the reading because he was lazy. Okay? Now, he would get called on, and you know, when I went to law school, we weren't quite fully into the full snowflake mode where young adults are accommodated at every turn and told that their emotional infirmities are something to be celebrated. So, you know, kids would get called on, and if you didn't know your stuff, I mean, you got berated. It depended on the professor, but it could be really bad. If you've seen the movie Paper Chase, great movie from, what was that, Robbie, 70s maybe? Paper Chase. First year torts, I think, was the class at Harvard. Great film about being a law student with a tough professor. I had a couple of classes like that, but here's my point. So this kid wouldn't do his reading. And he would, you know, and so when he would get asked about something substantive, this case, you know, Smith v. Alabama, whatever it is, tell us, Mr. So-and-so, what do you think of this case? And he would immediately begin to argue stuff about policy. Well, I don't think this was intended. I don't think this is what the legislator, and you could make the same nonsensical argument about every single case, but it sounded reasonably good. And this is precisely why, folks, it's not a full explanation of exactly how dangerous Ketanji Brown Jackson is, but it does explain why the left in the last 24 hours 48 hours, a few days, has been breathlessly sharing Ketanji Brown Jackson clips on the internet, on Facebook, social media, where, you know, X, wherever, because they think what she's saying sounds good. And anybody with a trained legal ear is going, this is insane. Now, here's why it's dangerous. Here is why it matters. And here is why you all need to keep your antennas up on this. The fact of the matter is, Ketanji Brown Jackson put on the court by none other than Joseph Biden, the mentally absentee president, the usurper president in office between the two terms of Donaldus Magnificus. All right? Ketanji Brown Jackson got put on the court. Biden puts her on the court. And here's the deal. It's easy to dismiss her as dumb. Is she dumb? Probably. But she is the prototype justice that the left will pack the court with when they get fully in control of this government. You can mark this down as prophecy. And the reason that she is so good is she literally doesn't care what the words say, because the words, as written in the Constitution or written in federal law, have no real meaning or true defined meaning. She's a postmodernist. She is there's no truth, right? There's no fixed truth. And I've said this a time ago. I've been repeating myself. Those of you who've been listening to the program for a while will acknowledge this, that the reason that the left goes after language is in order to change the law. In the law, words mean things. Laws are not written as mathematical formulas. They're written using a language. And words, when put together, have a certain meaning. And we agree on that meaning. You open a dictionary, and a certain word equals a certain, result. And when the left comes in and tries to change, and it's really even as simple as male and female. This is why it's so important to push back on this, because there are laws that govern men and women that talk about gender and the like. And you erase the differences, you erase the bright lines, you reorganize the law. So Ketanji Brown Jackson is now, and yesterday, I'm reacting to this because yesterday I was listening to the oral arguments for the birthright citizenship case. This is Trump v. Barbara, okay? And this is litigation surrounding Trump's January 2025 executive order ending birthright citizenship. And we have a problem, okay? We have a birthright citizenship problem. I've talked about this for a long time, particularly since China, many Chinese citizens, with the urging and support of their government, send their pregnant women, and yes, only women can get pregnant. In China, they acknowledge this. So they send their pregnant women to America to birth kids so that they get American passports. And now, after we do this for a period of time, there will be a significant number of dual Chinese and American nationals with allegiance to China. They have no tie to the U.S. They were born here, maybe never came back, but they're waiting with their American passports in China, and it's not a good thing. I think we can agree on this. There's a story that just came out about a Chinese billionaire named Xu Bo. This guy is a prolific fatherer of children. He's been going around inseminating women left and right. 100 plus kids through surrogates. His company admits 12 of them were born in the U.S. Other reports say dozens. Okay? If you know anything about China, you understand somebody can't be a billionaire and not have deep allegiance. There's the word. We'll come back to it time and again in today's program, to the Communist Party. You don't exist over there as a successful businessman without having to kowtow to the communists. Okay, so this is just one example. And you know that these birth houses have been discovered all over California. I keep reading these stories about Rowland Heights in SoCal, about Irvine, and I laugh every time I read the story because I remember this. When I lived in Irvine, when I lived in a very exclusive part of Irvine that had literally a Chinese birthing house next door. But Sam, how do you know it was a Chinese birthing house? Okay, because there was one guy that operated it. You'd see him. And then every few months, there was a crop of 3 or 4 different Chinese ladies who were late stages pregnant. You don't have to be Nancy Drew to figure this stuff out. These were half-acre, acre lots. It's, I didn't have that many neighbors around me. And they were right literally next door. And it was happening as plain as day. So this guy, at the time, it was a $6 million, $7 million house when I lived there. Now it's a $10, $12 million house. So these Chinese multimillionaires, billionaires, whatever, are sending their significant others, their wives, girlfriends, pregnant ladies over to these nice houses. And there are down market alternatives, no doubt, that perform the same thing. So this happens. And the argument, just so we understand there's a very straightforward constitutional argument about this. And it goes, the citizenship clause of the 14th Amendment, here's the exact language in there that matters. The text, when it was ratified in 1868, it reads, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States in the state wherein they reside. Now, born is clear enough, right? We understand this. So-and-so was born in the U.S. That is plain as day. What's this comma and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, comma, part, and is it relevant? Now, because it wasn't written by Ketanji Brown Jackson, you got to assume that the words all mean something, okay? So what did they mean when they wrote this? There's different kinds of justices on the Supreme Court historically, right? If you look at Scalia, he was an originalist. What does originalism mean? Originalism means you doing exactly what I'm doing here. What did they mean? It matters. It doesn't mean what does this mean today? It means what did this mean when they wrote it? Did they intend, right, for this to mean that a Chinese person can send their 8-month pregnant wife to California, to a birthing house in Irvine, California, to be next door, birth her child at Hoag Hospital, and then ta-da, that kid is a lifelong U.S. citizen, no different from you and I. They didn't mean this, okay? It has to do that there was no competition, okay, of allegiance between this citizen and the U.S., okay? And there's a congressional record of debates around this issue, all right? And it's all there. But what you're getting is, and this is the most absurd arguments, and Ketanji Brown Jackson will be mocked, I mean, in lawyer circles at least, been mocked incessantly for this, for questioning along these lines.
I was thinking about this, and I think there are various sources that say this, that you obviously have permanent allegiance based on being born in whatever country you're from. That's what everybody recognizes. But you also have local allegiance when you are on the soil of this other sovereign. And I was thinking, I, a U.S. citizen, am visiting Japan. And what it means is that, if I steal someone's wallet in Japan, the Japanese authorities can arrest me and prosecute me. It's allegiance, meaning can they control you as a matter of law. I can also rely on them if my wallet is stolen to, under Japanese law, go and prosecute the person who has stolen it. So there's this relationship based on, even though I'm a temporary traveler, I'm just on vacation in Japan, I'm still locally owing allegiance.
So if you sneak into Ketanji Brown Jackson's office inside the Supreme Court, steal her black robes, you've become a Supreme Court justice by this logic. This thing is asinine. I wrote this yesterday on X, on Twitter. I said, she's not a progressive. She's inventive. She makes things up. When it comes to laws, a country has personal jurisdiction over you if you are there. You are subject to the laws, okay, of that country if you are there, even as a temporary person. But the way this was written specifically addressed the question of allegiance. Allegiance and jurisdiction are two completely different things. and to rewrite or redefine the word allegiance and to start using it. Here's where I'm inclined to tell you that I think in all of this muddling, Ketanji Brown Jackson, is being deliberate in trying to confuse two different words, two different concepts that are simply not interchangeable: allegiance and jurisdiction. What allegiance to the U.S. does a Chinese woman or anybody who comes to the U.S. for a vacation, drops a kid, and then leaves with the child? And it's not even a question of the woman, it's a question of the child. What allegiance could that child possibly have and have formed with the United States? It's astonishing. So this is, this is terrible. And I don't know. I mean, my sense, by the way, a quick aside here, my sense is that a majority of the justices are going to be voting against Trump on this. I do. I don't think this is going to end up well, and it's going to lead to a showdown. Is my fear, a showdown? I'm just looking down the road, Robbie, here a little bit, looking in the crystal ball. I could see them really doubling down and going after dual citizens. That's what I think will happen. They'll go after dual citizens. They'll say, okay, all right, it's 14 minutes, so okay, we're doing away with accepting and acknowledging, tolerating dual citizenship. So, but this is crazy stuff. Here's the issue, right? The left wants justices like KBJ, Ketanji Brown Jackson, because she will make stuff up and will disregard existing precedent. Look at even Kagan, Elena Kagan, liberal justice. In the Tuesday Childs v. Salazar decision, this is the Colorado conversion ban therapy, right? Conversion therapy ban. Here's a quote from her opinion. This is Kagan, fellow liberal justice. Quote, Justice Jackson's dissenting opinion claims that this is a small or even non-existent category. But even her own opinion, when listing laws supposedly put at risk today, offers quite a few examples. Her view to the contrary rests on reimagining, and in that way collapsing the well-settled distinction between viewpoint-based and other content-based speech restrictions. Okay? And this is, right, this is exactly it. Kagan's on the left, but she sees what Jackson is doing. Even calls her out for it, this post-modernist changing thing, muddling it all together. Words have no meaning. It is what it is. She makes things up in layman's terms. So, and by the way, she's prolific at just blabbing nonstop. I'll get to that here after the break, but she says, well, I'm confused. She always says she's confused. But behind it, I'm telling you, she is, again, if you consider all of the things that the Biden presidency brought, they had a president who was non-compos mentis. He wasn't there. He was having his little ice cream cones. He was checked out. And the people behind the scenes, the party activists, right, the true blue Democrats, radical Democrats, were able to do exactly as they pleased. And they selected Ketanji Brown Jackson. It was not an accident. This is who they want on the court. Trust me. Sam Murjovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. Be right back.
The Sam and Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Rajovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Friends, welcome to the program. I'm here. I'm happy to be here. Quick word before we get back to the Supreme Court about the law. That's right, the law. Your very straightforward accident, injury case is governed by the law. And the insurance company that's handling it, it's acting all nice and cool and like they want to help, knows the law better than you do. And they have lawyers, investigators, paralegals at their disposal. They use that machinery against you. But they put a friendly face on it. They talk to you. They go through all the motions. They make you think, hey, okay, I'll just give them what they want and they will treat me fairly in return. And then months later, after you've spent hours upon hours dealing with them, they give you an offer that you know is completely wrong. But what do you do then? Well, I'm telling you, it's never too late to get help. Sam and Ash Injury Law. That's the name to trust. 800-304-2000. 800-304-2000. SamandAshLaw.com. No recovery, no fee. Yes, you need a lawyer. That's the God honest truth. All right? Get a lawyer. SamandAshLaw.com. Sam and Ash Injury Law. No recovery, no fee, no money out of pocket, easy peasy, because you deserve what's right. All right, folks. By the way, just a quick aside here. Did you see that Nevada, specifically the 2nd Congressional District in Nevada, has been in the news nationally of late? I was going to get to this later. I want to get to this now because, Mark Amadei is retiring. This is a reliably conservative district, right? A very Republican, very red district. So the fight here is in the primary. And because it's a wide open race, you've got a few contenders. And really now it's between two people. And I'm getting Laura Loomer has stepped into this among other MAGA activists. All right, I'll get to it here. Yeah, okay. James Settlemeyer is running for the seat. Has announced he's running for the seat, and he's gotten Amadei's endorsement, also the governor's endorsement. And Loomer went apoplectic over this, right? She said this guy is a complete fraud. He's a rhino. He's this, that, and the other, and it made a series of allegations. Now, can I just go through them one by one? Because what bothers me sometimes about people on our side is present just the facts, right? Go for the facts. She's like half right and half wrong. And it really does a disservice to the argument. So I always promise you here, I always do my best to be accurate. So, okay, she alleged, I'll go through her allegations here. First of all, she starts with Amadei. She says that Congressman Mark Amadei had a strong anti-Trump record. He supported impeachment. Now, in 2019, it's true that Amadei supported an impeachment inquiry, and then he voted no on both impeachments, just for the record. Okay? And so then there's this allegation that Settlemeyer is a rhino by association. Okay? All right, so the whole that's not fair. Okay? One allegation was that he was in the Senate for a while, right? He was a Republican in the state Senate in Nevada. Said that he voted to ratify Nevada's Equal Rights Amendment. It's not true. He voted no on this, okay? He was the only dissent in the Senate committee. He called it unconstitutional and symbolic. So And there's some news story out there that got this completely wrong, and that's what's being cited. All right. Voted to preserve the Affordable Care Act mandates. This appears to be true. It's AB 170 in 2021. Aligned with Nevada law, he did support that. Increased state funding for Planned Parenthood. It's a little true, but misleading because it passed the Senate 21-0 and the Assembly 39-0. Every single elected Republican voted for this bill. I'm not going to get into the whole bill of it and the details, but it's not as bad as it sounds. All right. And picking on him is a little misleading, in my opinion. Supported millions for the Las Vegas Raiders Stadium. Yeah. Okay. He did. Again, it passed the Senate 21-0 and the Assembly 39-0. Again, every Republican voted yes on this. Actually, I don't have the Assembly votes here. I just see the Senate votes. So, but the Senate was 21-0. This was a special session back in 2016. He backed a company that went out of business. That's true. Prevailing wage for workers. Yeah, that's true. He voted for that. And then the DEI thing. He voted for DEI. He just voted to authorize a study to see how DEI affected workplace dynamics. That's it. Would I have voted to even study it? I don't know. I haven't read the bill. I'm not that into the granular details. I'm just telling you, he didn't vote to implement DEI. He voted to determine whether it had any effects. And, maybe, if the study's there to determine whether it's good or not, I'd be like, yeah, go ahead and study it. Then we can talk about it. So this is, my bottom line on this is that, that they're attacking him. And this is a really precarious time for us in Nevada. So we have Lombardo. Lombardo isn't a MAGA conservative. Okay, he's not like a hardcore Trump guy. But having a Republican governor in Nevada has been an absolute blessing, because all this crazy stuff that the Dems that control the Senate and the Assembly have been putting out, Lombardo hasn't been afraid to use his veto. And the veto, and that's powerful because they still don't have a veto-proof majority in the Senate. So he's able to stop a lot of this insanity. And this is an election year. And sometimes people can't be pragmatic. You gotta elect Republicans that are going to win. And so who's running? David Flippo, nice guy, okay. He's never won a race. He's never won a primary. And so this is like this, okay, we demand purity. And I certainly want a certain type of conservative Republican elected to office. But on the other side, we have A.A. Ron Ford, who wants to be our governor. He's a complete lunatic. And then we have Susie Lee, who yesterday tweeted out as a profane post about Donald Trump, F this guy, F, whatever. And then she deleted it. So, this on the flip side, we've got Democrats, you've got to support Republicans who can win. Sometimes, and by the way, if you've got differences, now let's hash it out. Let's have an open primary. I'm a big believer in this. But don't lie about somebody. Don't misrepresent their record. Laura Loomer could have gone after, this guy and hit him with the facts. But instead, she just recycled some stuff she found on the internet. Very sloppy and disappointing. No question about that. Now, Ketanji Brown Jackson, I go back to this because this really, really matters. I have said this and I'll say it again and again and again. The left will pack the Supreme Court if given a chance. And then rights that you take for granted will disappear. They'll vanish. look at all of these 8-1 decisions that Ketanji Brown Jackson happens to be, miraculously, the one dissenting vote. And then you read the opinions, and don't worry, you don't have to read them. I've read them, and I can tell you it's gibberish. But what it really is it's an example of if that opinion was the majority decision. If Ketanji Brown Jackson had 5 allies on an expanded court who would side with her, again, everything from the First Amendment to the Second Amendment to America would, within 12 months, be a radically different place. Activist lawyers like Mark Elias would bring cases, would challenge cases, would make nonsensical arguments. It would get shut down in the lower courts. It would move its way up, maybe get through Judge Boasberg, right? You know, we got some liberal judges out there. We know this. And then what? It would hit the Supreme Court, and they would validate it, and then some. And like that, stuff would just get reversed. It would end in revolution, all right? It would end in revolution. I'm convinced of this. And that's why we have to take all of this very seriously, all right? Yeah, this is postmodernism, the stuff that she's doing. That's exactly right. This is what Ketanji Brown Jackson is doing is postmodernism. Well, the truth there's no real objective truth, right? Words don't really mean what they mean, you know. It's all relative. This is critical theory school. And, you know, back in the day, you could disagree with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, for example. The problem is Ruth Bader Ginsburg was brilliant and never made an illogical argument. And even when you study a complete nonsense case like Roe v. Wade, it at least had some logic to it. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, in her arguments, never argued that a woman, the word woman, doesn't mean a woman, okay? Or that personal jurisdiction and allegiance are the same thing. Bringing this back to the current issue at hand, which is birthright citizenship. Now, the sovereignty of our country is under attack in a variety of ways. One of them is that we are slowly and methodically being abused for an insane policy that automatically grants a passport to any baby that drops out of a vagina in our territory. This is nuts. Sorry to be so blunt. Producer Robbie is giggling over there. I don't know how else to put it. Right? And when people come at Ketanji Brown Jackson, again, she's the prototype justice that the left wants out there who's going to reorganize, and they come at her with a logical argument, she has this thing that she does, and she says, I don't understand. By the way, here's a compilation to drive this point home. It's all this woman does is say, I don't understand. I don't understand.
So I don't understand. Can I just understand? And I don't understand. And so what I don't understand, I don't understand your argument. I'm just trying to understand your answer. I don't understand. I guess I don't understand. I guess I don't understand. I don't understand. And I'm just trying to understand. I don't understand, but I'm just trying to understand. I'm trying to understand. So I'm trying to understand. I'm sort of with Justice Kagan trying to understand. I don't understand. I don't understand because I'm still trying to understand. Maybe I'm just not understanding. I don't understand. I'm trying to understand, and I don't understand. I was just trying to understand. So I guess I don't understand, and I guess I don't understand. I don't understand. I'm struggling to understand.
I'm struggling to understand. I don't understand. Help me understand. By the way, back to law school, Robbie, this would happen. I'm sorry, Professor, I don't understand. No, you didn't do your reading. We'd all be sitting there like, yeah, right, you don't understand. You do understand. You just want to be spoon-fed this stuff. And in the case of Ketanji Brown Jackson, you want to redefine what these words mean, so you're acting like they don't have meaning. What do you mean, a woman? What do you mean, personal jurisdiction? What do you mean, allegiance? If I'm in Japan and I steal a wallet, this is the clip that I played of her, and I steal a wallet, do I have allegiance to Japan? No. Can I still be punished? Can I still be arrested and convicted for theft in Japan? Yes, because the crime occurred there. And what are forebearers intended with the way this was all put together back in 1866? They did deliberately. There was a Senator Jacob Howard. I bet his name. I didn't listen to all the arguments yesterday. I also had to work, folks. I have a day job. But there's a Senator Jacob Howard who introduced this clause in the Civil Rights Act that later became the 14th Amendment. And it stated, right, he said that the clause was, of course, would exclude, and here was his direct quote, persons born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens, who belong to the families of ambassadors or foreign ministers, emphasizing, right, that it was limited to those under full U.S. authority. Okay? Let me put it another way to Ketanji Brown Jackson. Here's my retort for those of you out there who are lost in this. If I, as a U.S. citizen, steal a wallet in Japan, and I'm arrested, and I'm going to be held in trial, who am I calling besides a lawyer? Oh, the U.S. Embassy. That's right. That's what you do when you're a foreigner in a foreign country being charged under foreign law. How about this? When you look at the plain language of the 14th Amendment, and you look at the originalist view of how the people that debated this, what they were talking about. If you commit a crime, you're under the jurisdiction of a country, but you could dial a friend at a different embassy. You drop a baby there, that baby is not a U.S. citizen. How's that for a very simple bright line rule? Right? If there's some other embassy that you can call, and you've got another lifeline. You've got other citizenship. I mean, it's a solution, and it's one that makes sense in this context. But that would be my answer to Ketanji Brown Jackson. By the way, the attorney who is handling this, very smart guy, whip smart, very fast. He has the Trump lawyer, right? The solicitor, not the Solicitor General, but the appellate attorney here who's doing this. He just has this really raspy voice. Did you hear it, Robbie? He has a terrible voice. And the problem is that these clips are starting to circulate. I didn't have any of them here today because we got lots to cover, but it just doesn't really help them very much to have kind of this terrible raspy voice. How many times have the left talked about packing the court? This is just a year ago. Adam Schiff talking about what has to happen in order to put conservatives in check in America.
I still strongly support expanding the court. I also support term limits on the court and an enforceable code of ethics. We see such unrepresentative decisions coming out of that court. And in order to rebalance the court, we have to unstack the court, and that means expanding it. Otherwise, a whole generation of Americans is going to have to be saddled with this reactionary and partisan court.
Yeah, that's the solution. Stack the court. They're going to put 5 or 6 or 7 more Ketanji Brown Jacksons on there and turn it into a real cluster mess. That's the plan. Now, folks, what's going on with this NATO thing? A lot of people out there talking about how Trump's going to pull us out of NATO. They're drawing attention to these remarks that Marco Rubio made yesterday. Have a listen to this.
And I've been a big supporter of NATO. And one of the reasons why I've been a supporter of NATO is because I believe that these basing rights give us leverage and give us flexibility and operational capability all over the world. But if NATO is just about us defending Europe if they're attacked, but them denying us basing rights when we need them, that's not a very good arrangement. That's a hard one to stay engaged in and say this is good for the United States. So all of them's going to have to be re-examined. All of it's going to have to be re-examined.
And it comes on the heels of Trump the other day putting out a post on Truth Social, quote, all those countries that can't get jet fuel, meaning people in Europe, like the United Kingdom, which refused to get involved in the decapitation of Iran. I have a suggestion for you. Number one, buy American. We have plenty. Number two, build some delayed courage, go to the strait, and just take it. You'll have to start learning how to fight for yourselves. The USA won't be there to help you anymore. Just like you weren't there for us, Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done. Get your own oil, President DJT. You know, what would Europe be defense-wise without the U.S.? I mean, I can tell you right now, I spend a fair amount of time in Europe, and I know it better than most people on podcasts and radio shows and the media in the U.S., certainly on the conservative side. I can tell you that without American bases, without the American military backing up the Europeans, they're toast. Some people are saying that Trump is headed for a next confrontation with Turkey. I don't know about that necessarily. But this is definitely interesting, and it should give the Europeans pause. Sam Rajovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. I'll see you tomorrow, folks. Hang in there.